There are moments in life that feel ordinary on the surface, yet quietly they mark a turning point. You stumble upon a voice, a sentence, a spark that feels less like coincidence and more like time. Perfect, intentional, undeniable. That's the thing about change. It rarely arrives when you demand it. It comes in whispers, in pauses, in the quiet ache that tells you the life you've been living is no longer the one you're meant to carry forward. And maybe that's why you're here now, listening, not by accident, but by design. Every struggle, every silence, every question that's haunted you has been preparing you for this moment, for the courage to shift, to shed, to step into something more aligned with the rhythm of your soul. You are not late, you are not lost, you are exactly where you are meant to be, because in the grand symphony of existence, even this moment is part of your becoming. Change never shows up when we think we're ready for it. It doesn't answer to our calendars or bend to our timelines. You can plan, strategize, and tell yourself you'll take the leap someday. But life doesn't work like that. Transformation has its own rhythm. It waits for the moment when the cracks in your old life can no longer hold, when the story you've been telling yourself finally feels too small, and when your soul whispers asterisk now. Asterisk, what's fascinating is how invisible that moment often is while it's happening. You don't wake up one morning with fireworks or a neon sign pointing to today's the day. More often, it sneaks up quietly. It feels like exhaustion you can't shake or a deep restlessness you can't explain. It's the sense that something about the way you're living no longer fits, even though from the outside, nothing looks broken. That discomfort is not random. It's the signal. It's life preparing you to step into something new. Here's the thing. Most of us resist it. We cling to what's familiar because it feels safer than stepping into the unknown. We tell ourselves stories. Asterisk, I'll wait until I have more money, more certainty, more confidence. Asterisk, but change doesn't wait for certainty. It doesn't wait for the conditions to be perfect. It arrives when your spirit is ready, even if your mind is screaming that you're not. And that's why it feels so unsettling, because transformation is not polite. It disrupts, it rearranges, it calls you forward whether you feel prepared or not. Think back to times in your life when everything shifted. Chances are you didn't see it coming. Maybe it was a job you lost that you thought you couldn't live without. Maybe it was a relationship ending that broke you open. Maybe it was a quiet decision one night to finally stop living on autopilot. At the time, it probably felt like chaos, but looking back, wasn't it also the beginning? Didn't it lead you somewhere you never imagined? Somewhere you couldn't have gotten to without that disruption? That's the timing of transformation. It knows before you do that you are ready. And here's the paradox. You don't have to feel ready to be ready. Readiness is not a feeling, it's a state of being. It's the moment life decides, asterisk, you've learned what you needed to learn here. It's time to grow. Asterisk, and even though fear will try to convince you otherwise, deep down, a part of you already knows. That knowing is why you're restless. That knowing is why you found this message. So instead of asking, asterisk, am I ready to change? Asterisk, start asking, asterisk, what is life asking me to step into right now? Asterisk, because the invitation is already here. The question is whether you'll answer it. And maybe that's why this moment, right here, feels significant. Because some part of you recognizes that you've reached the edge of an old chapter. You don't need to map out the entire next one. You just need to trust that the timing of your transformation is not an accident. You are here, hearing this, not because you forced it, but because you were meant to. So let the timing of your life do its work. Stop waiting for the perfect moment, because the perfect moment is already unfolding. And here's the closing truth. Change doesn't come when you're comfortable. It comes when your soul is ready. Before change bursts into your life like a storm, it arrives as something far quieter. It doesn't announce itself with clarity. It doesn't arrive with a plan. It slips in as a whisper beneath the noise of your daily routine. That whisper might sound like dissatisfaction. You go through the motions of work, of conversations, of habits you've outgrown, and something deep inside mutters, asterisk, this isn't it anymore. Asterisk, sometimes it comes as restlessness, like an ache you can't locate, an itch under your skin that tells you there is more waiting for you out there, even if you can't yet name it. And sometimes it shows up as a longing so subtle you almost miss it, a daydream that keeps returning, a thought that visits you in the quiet moments asking, asterisk, what if life could be different? Asterisk, most people ignore that whisper. They drown it out with busyness. They scroll their feeds, they fill their schedules. They convince themselves that if they just push harder, those feelings will go away. But they don't, because those whispers aren't distractions. They're instructions. They're the compass pointing you toward the shift your soul has been preparing for. Think about it. Everything monumental in your life began as something small. The biggest moves, the most profound transformations, they rarely start with lightning bolts. They start with nudges, with intuition, with those little sparks you can't fully explain. And when you look back later, you realize those quiet moments were not insignificant at all. They were the beginning of everything, but here's the catch. Listening to that whisper requires courage. It asks you to trust something invisible. It asks you to pause long enough to notice what's stirring inside you. That's uncomfortable because we've been conditioned to value noise, achievement, constant motion. Silence feels unnatural. Stillness feels unproductive. Yet it's in the silence where the truth finally rises. When you ignore the whisper long enough, life has a way of getting louder. The whisper becomes a push. The push becomes a shove, until suddenly you're forced into change you didn't choose, simply because you avoided the one you were called to step into willingly. It's not punishment, it's alignment. Life will keep nudging you louder and louder until you finally answer. So the question becomes, will you listen when it's a whisper, or will you wait until it becomes a storm? That's why awareness is everything. Start paying attention to what repeats itself in your mind. Notice the places you feel drained. Notice the moments you feel most alive. Those are not random. They're clues. They're the quiet voice of your future self, reaching back and saying, asterisk, come this way. Asterisk, you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to know exactly where the whisper will lead. You just have to stop dismissing it. Because the whisper is not asking you to leap, it's asking you to notice. And noticing is always the first step to change. So tonight, when the noise dies down, when the day is behind you, I want you to lean into the quiet. Don't reach for your phone, don't fill the silence, just listen. Ask yourself, asterisk, what have I been pretending not to know? Asterisk, because the truth is already inside you. The whisper has been there all along, waiting for you to hear it. And here's the closing truth. The whisper you keep ignoring is the doorway to the life you've been waiting for. Every real change in life demands that you let go of something. We love the idea of transformation, but what we often forget is that growth isn't just about adding new, it's about releasing old. It's about loosening your grip on the stories, the identities, and even the environments that no longer align with who you are becoming. That's the hardest part because letting go feels like loss. But what if it's not? What if letting go is really just creating space for the life that's been waiting to meet you? Think about the trees in autumn. They don't cling to their leaves, bargaining with the wind to let them hold on just a little longer. They surrender. They let the leaves fall because nature knows the cycle. Shedding is necessary for renewal. But humans, we resist. We grip old jobs, toxic relationships, outdated dreams, because at least they're familiar. And yet that familiarity is exactly what keeps us stuck. The truth is, the stories you've been carrying about who you are, what you can or can't do, what you deserve, Those stories are like heavy coats you've outgrown. They once kept you warm, but now they're suffocating. And the only way to step into a bigger life is to take them off. That requires courage. It requires the willingness to face the space that opens up when you no longer fill it with the old. But here's the paradox. The moment you release, you create room for something new. That new job, that healthier relationship, that opportunity you couldn't even see before because your hands were too full holding onto what no longer served you. Letting go doesn't leave you empty. It makes you available. And I get it. Letting go feels uncertain. It feels like standing at the edge of a cliff, unsure what happens when you step forward. But here's what I've learned. You don't discover what's next by clinging to what's safe. You discover it by trusting that the act of release is not the end, it's the beginning. Look back at your life. Every time you've grown, something had to be left behind. Maybe it was a version of yourself that didn't believe you were capable. Maybe it was a group of people who couldn't walk with you into the next chapter. Maybe it was an identity tied to what others expected of you. It hurt to release it, but didn't it also make room for more? That pattern isn't coincidence. It's how transformation works. So maybe the question isn't, what do I want to add to my life? Maybe the better question is, what am I willing to let go of? Because until you loosen your grip on what's keeping you small, you cannot grasp what's meant to expand you. And here's the part that feels almost divine. Letting go doesn't erase the past, it honors it. It acknowledges that it served its purpose, taught you its lessons, and now it's time to set it down. You don't need to carry every chapter into the next book. Some stories belong exactly where they ended. So today, if you feel the weight of something you've been gripping too tightly, I want you to remember this. Release is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's the soul's way of making space for the life you've been asking for. And here's the closing truth. What you refuse to let go of will hold you back, but what you release will set you free. Discomfort is one of life's greatest paradoxes. We spend so much of our energy trying to avoid it, and yet it's almost always the doorway to the very thing we're searching for. When you feel unsettled, restless, out of place, that's not a sign you're failing. That's not punishment. It's the invitation. It's life tapping you on the shoulder saying, you're standing at the threshold. Are you willing to walk through? Think about it. Every major turning point in your life has been wrapped in discomfort. The first day you started a new job. The moment you ended a relationship that no longer worked. The terrifying decision to move to a new city or speak up for yourself when it would have been easier to stay quiet. None of those moments felt comfortable at the time. They felt scary, uncertain, even overwhelming. But didn't they also shape you? Didn't they expand you into someone stronger, wiser, more aligned with who you are? We mistake comfort for safety, but in reality, comfort often equals stagnation. When everything feels easy and predictable, you're not growing. Growth happens in the stretch. Growth happens in the space where you're not sure if you can do it, but you take the step anyway. That's why discomfort is not the enemy, it's the signal. It's proof that you're on the edge of transformation. Most people spend their lives running from that feeling. They'll stay in jobs that drain them, relationships that shrink them, routines that numb them, all because it feels easier than stepping into the unknown. But the irony is, the longer you resist discomfort, the more uncomfortable you actually become. The weight of living out of alignment grows heavier. The silence inside gets louder, and eventually you realize the real risk wasn't walking through the doorway, it was staying outside of it. I want you to think about the last time you did something that scared you, but you knew it was right. Maybe you started that business. Maybe you finally said the words you'd been holding back. Maybe you signed up for something you weren't sure you could handle. Remember that rush of fear mixed with freedom. That's the sacred tension of change. That's discomfort working as a catalyst, breaking you open so something new can come through. And here's the truth. Discomfort never lasts as long as you think it will. Fear builds it up like a monster in your mind, but once you step in, you realize the monster was mostly smoke. What replaces it is resilience. What replaces it is pride that you did the hard thing. What replaces it is momentum. So the next time you feel that tightness in your chest, that nervous energy in your stomach, that whisper that says, asterisk, this isn't comfortable, asterisk, I want you to reframe it. Instead of thinking, asterisk, something's wrong, asterisk, start asking, asterisk, what doorway am I being invited to walk through? Asterisk, because that's what discomfort really is. It's not a wall. It's not a stop sign. It's the doorway. The life you want is on the other side of a feeling you've been taught to avoid. But if you can see discomfort for what it really is, not punishment, not failure, but the path, you unlock everything. And here's the closing truth. The discomfort you feel today is not the barrier to your growth. It's the doorway to your becoming. Here's the wildest part about change. You're never going to see the whole path before you start walking it. And that terrifies us, doesn't it? We've been conditioned to believe we need guarantees before we act. We want to know the ending before we take the first step. We crave certainty, but life doesn't give us certainty. It gives us invitations. And those invitations almost always come disguised as uncertainty, as the unknown, as a road you've never walked before. That's why so many people stay stuck. They wait for clarity before they move, but clarity doesn't come before the step, it comes because of the step. You discover the path by walking it, not by standing still. That's the secret nobody tells you. You're not supposed to know it all right now. You're supposed to trust that the next stone in the river will reveal itself once you've put your foot on the first one. Think about every great chapter in your life so far. You didn't have a 5-year plan that perfectly mapped out how it would unfold. You just started. Maybe you moved to a new place. Maybe you pursued a relationship not knowing where it would lead. Maybe you applied for a job that scared you. None of those moments came with a guarantee. They came with a leap of faith, and in the leap, the path began to take shape. Here's the truth. Certainty is an illusion. Even the things that look stable can shift overnight. The job you think is secure can disappear. The plan you think is airtight can unravel. So why cling to the illusion of certainty when the only thing you ever really have is the ability to take the next step? The unknown isn't your enemy, it's your canvas. It's the why, open space where new possibilities are born. And yes, stepping into the unseen is uncomfortable. That's because it requires surrender. It requires trusting something bigger than your own limited vision. But isn't that what makes it so powerful? If you knew every detail, every twist, every turn, you'd never grow. You'd never be surprised by the beauty waiting around corners you couldn't predict. You'd never learn to trust yourself, to adapt, to rise to challenges you didn't see coming. I want you to think about the caterpillar inside the cocoon. From the outside, it looks like stillness, but inside, everything is dissolving, reshaping, becoming something entirely new. The caterpillar doesn't know what flying will feel like. It doesn't know the skies it will soar across. It simply surrenders to the process. That's the trust I'm talking about. Change asks you to do the same, to trust that even in the dark, even in the unknown, something extraordinary is unfolding. And here's the beauty. You're not alone in it. Life has a way of meeting you once you step forward. The right people, the right opportunities, the right lessons. They appear not before you move, but because you moved. That's the rhythm of the universe. You act in faith and life responds. So stop waiting to see the whole staircase. Stop telling yourself you'll start once you've figured it all out. You won't. Nobody does. The path reveals itself only to those willing to walk it. And here's the closing truth. You don't need certainty to change. You just need the courage to take the first step. One of the most beautiful realizations about change is that it's never just about you. We think of transformation as this deeply personal journey, and it is. But what we often miss is how it ripples outward into the lives of others. Every time you choose courage over fear, every time you listen to that whisper and walk through discomfort into something new, you're not just rewriting your own story, you're giving permission for others to do the same. Think about it. When you see someone you admire take a risk, step out of the box, or speak their truth, doesn't it light something inside you? It reminds you of what's possible. It proves that transformation isn't reserved for a chosen few, it's available to all of us. And the same is true when you step into your change. Without even realizing it, your courage becomes a beacon. Your growth becomes part of a collective rhythm that lifts others higher. It's like being part of a symphony. Alone, your instrument might sound small, but when you play your part, it blends with countless others, creating music so vast and intricate you could never imagine it on your own. That's what life is, a grand, unfolding composition. And when you resist change, you're withholding your note. But when you embrace it, you contribute to the greater harmony of existence. Sometimes we forget how interconnected we really are. We think the decisions we make exist in isolation, but they don't. Choosing to leave a toxic job might inspire someone else to find their voice. Choosing to pursue your dream might encourage your child to believe theirs is possible. Choosing to heal your wounds might change the way generations after you experience love. That's how profound your transformation really is. It's not just personal, it's cosmic. And here's the wild part. You may never see the full extent of your impact. You may never know whose life was touched because you had the courage to change. But trust me, it happens. It happens in ways you can't measure, in conversations you'll never overhear, in choices you'll never witness. Your ripple travels farther than your eyes can see. So when fear tells you, why bother? What difference will it make if I change? Remember this. Your becoming is part of something much bigger. Every act of courage, every step into alignment, every moment of growth adds to the whole. You are not moving alone. You are part of an infinite dance where each step matters. That's the sacredness of change. It's not selfish, it's service. It's you stepping into your role in the design of life, playing your note fully, so the music can rise higher and stronger for everyone. So if you've been waiting for a sign that your transformation matters, let this be it. Because your change is not small. Your change is not meaningless. Your change belongs to all of us. And here's the closing truth. When you choose to change, you don't just transform your own life. You help transform the world.